join in on this session. It's the main man, Andrew. And your host for this extravaganza, Mod Knox.
Do you guys, right, to start with, can I ask all of you, in order, starting from Andrew, do you have a favourite NPC?
Yeah, my favourite NPC in the game would be one of the penguin-related ones. I've chosen Penguin in the Barrel, although I'm also fond of the Thing NPC as well.
Oh, yes, of course. Easy one for me. My favourite NPC is Bob the Cat, because it's pretty much the only dialogue that I've actually written personally and added to the game. So if any of you have ever spoken to Bob the Cat with an amulet of cat speak, that's my stuff.
Hi, I'm Mod Joe. I'm art director on RuneScape. My favourite NPC is probably the Gnoll from the Glorious Memories quest, partly because of how it looks, and partly because we named it after Noel Edmonds, because one of the guys in the team had just won some money on Deal or No Deal that week, so it's very much something we wanted to do.
And for me, probably Nomad, being a massive Star Wars fan, he looks remarkably like the Emperor. I love his special attack when he gets in there on his first animation. So, yeah.
For me, it must be Rance, partly because I did the German translation for him, but mainly he's the only NPC who speaks worse English than me, so that's what.
Okay, our next question is about off weeks, and this is for Andrew. The question is, why are we making less content, and why are there so many off weeks?
So actually, that's sort of two parts really. I don't think we really are making less content than before. It's more about how we name things and how we highlight things. A lot of things that we historically would have called a update or content now sort of just get stuffed in other news and no one even notices it. Huge things we've worked on, like game engine updates and graphical improvements. It used to be that, remodeling Varrock would be an update. Now it barely gets a mention. I mean, a perfect example would be the last update we did, where we completely reworked all the character graphics, and we didn't even really mention it. And so a lot of it's about what we call an update. In terms of why we have off weeks, it's more because we're now lumping the updates together more. As the game gets bigger and bigger, it gets more and more testing is required to make sure that each update doesn't break the previous updates. And for some of the things we do, we can't actually physically get the update put together in a week, through testing in a week, once we've done all the integration testing. So we have to have off weeks to allow for those. But you don't get less overall, because we just do twice as much in those weeks. I mean, we've actually got a bigger content team than ever.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, the next question is for Mark, and the question is, why is the combat triangle so unbalanced?
So, there's often questions about the combat triangle in the game. I just get a quick straw poll from the audience. So, can you put up your hand if you major in magic? And if you major in melee combat? And if you major in ranged combat? Right, so you can see that there's a wide range of people, lots of different, it's pretty heavily melee orientated, which is what I was expecting to see. The thing about RuneScape you've got to understand is we don't restrict a player to a certain class. You can train any skill you like at any time. We're not like other games that would require you to have a specific class, and you'd have to make several accounts if you needed to. So the way that we work, we're encouraging players to try all the skills all the time. So I would admit that in some situations, some combat styles are stronger than others. But because you can explore any of the combat styles, and because you can go anywhere in the game, you can use different skills depending on what you're doing. So for example, magic's one of those things that a lot of people say is underpowered in a one-on-one environment, which you could argue that it is for some people, whereas in a multiplayer environment, a spell like Ice Barrage is going to kick, it's going to kick everything to Kingdom Come, basically. So you're looking at a situation where, for a mage, for a one-on-one environment, you might find it's underpowered, but in a multiplayer environment, you might think that you're overpowered. So you've got to think, okay, perhaps in this environment, I'm weaker than someone else, but you can always go and change your style. There's nothing that says you have to be a mage, or a melee, or a ranger. And that's the answer.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, the next question is for Modfetsky, and this is about bonus XP weekends. The question is, what's going to be done differently next time around, and do you have any regrets about how the last one turned out?
Yes, there's a couple of regrets, mainly about the bug right after the start when you logged in, so that the initial multiplier decreased so quickly, which is what we have changed for the next bonus XP weekend, so you'll have a full half hour for the first multiplier before it decreases. Also, we show you better how many minutes are left with the original multiplier. Also, what we didn't like more from a gameplay perspective is that since then we think that many players have been hoarding their chance and waiting for the next bonus XP weekend to do the summoning again. Yeah, I see nods, alright. That's been happening. So that's why we made a change on how we give bonuses on summoning. What we liked about it was that there was real excitement about it, like, you know, planning. It's like, what do I do first? You know, do I go for smithing? You know, do I go for hunting, or do I go for crafting, or whatever? What will I do first? And the other thing that I really liked from an economic point of view was the outflow of GP from the game. It really, if you look at the prices curve, it really dripped down after the XP weekend because so many people used all the resources, all the big stacks of GP that they had to go for summoning and construction, and that really was very healthy for the economy. The third thing that I really liked about is that I could tease Mark about it for weeks because he missed it, because he had to do rehearsals, and that was awesome.
I wasn't very happy at all. And he teased me every single day.
Yeah, of course. If you do it properly, right?
It's true, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. The next question is potentially the biggest one, and is for Andrew, and that's what happened to the wilderness, and will it ever come back?
So my first response is, still there. Not with the rock. But seriously, yeah, I know what you mean. You're obviously talking about the wilderness mechanic and the feel of fighting in the wildy. And we've done an awful lot to try and bring that back as close as we can. Particularly the bounty worlds were specifically designed to try and bring as close as we possibly could to the original wilderness feel. We've got the same level restriction mechanics, the same combat mechanics. About the only thing which is different with the bounty world is that you don't get to pick up the exact drops that the other person dropped. We tried to get rewards that feel rewarding, but the exact drops, obviously, as you know, causes a big problem with trading. In terms of trying to get that mechanic back, because we also thought it's nice to be able to kill someone and get what they've got, we're sort of trying to do that in isolated sort of sub-games where it's safe. So, for example, Stealing Creation, a lot of the original ambition for that was to create a game where you could kill people and get their stuff. Obviously, you can't take it out of the game, but you still get that feeling of, someone else has collected all the shards and stuff, and then you take them out. And same thing. Another idea that we might potentially be able to do in the future, we're umming and ahhing about it in the office, is a PvP version of Dungeoneering, where rather than going down in cooperative mode, you go down in competitive mode. You're trying to beat the dungeon before the other people. You're trying to kill the monsters before the other people. You're trying to get the rewards before the other people. And again, in that environment, we could have killing people and getting the drops, because again, it's isolated from the rest of the game. That would give a bit of that feel as well, I think.
That would be cool.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, the next question is for Dean, and that's about drop rates. The question is, do you people secretly change the drop rate of items, like Abyssal Whips, God Wars Dungeons drops, and Draconic Visages?
Contrary to popular belief, we don't nerf things just for the will of it. We don't have a special will where we just spin it and go, Abyssal Whip's getting nerfed today. If we do ever nerf something or change it, you will be notified by the patch notes if it's more significant in the other news section. I can understand your feeling totally when you're having a dry streak and you're not getting that Abyssal Whip, but nothing has changed adversely. It's still a 1 in 5 12 drop, and it's still like that. You're just having the bad luck, and you'll read about other people's good luck on the forums more than you will about their dry streaks. So I assure you, we haven't nerfed anything recently, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you. Right, the next question is for Joe. It's a graphical question about scimitars, and the question is, will Dragon Scimitars be changed back to normal instead of their current toy weapon look?
Yeah, this is obviously a bit of a contentious issue. I wanted to share with you a few sort of our sort of thought process when we come to upgrading some of the weapons, and also talk about the recent animation pack where the wield positions were changed. So essentially, we look at like the earlier game and moving over to the HD mode where you can have a resizable window, a lot of the old graphics didn't really hold up, and I think the old Scimitars is a very good example of that. It's quite blocky. So obviously, our thought process was we'll make it curvier, we'll try and make it, you know, a bit more kind of Scimitar-like, and then for the Dragon one, we do the same thing. Now, we've recently had a couple of engine changes which I just want to kind of talk to you about. Dean, could you pass that tube? Because it's kind of difficult to explain. But the first engine change we've got will actually allow us to make more of a kind of curve on the Scimitar and put a bit more detail in. The second one is kind of, it's kind of difficult to explain, but basically every player avatar, imagine imagine like a cube at your feet, and the game engine, if you reach outside of that cube, the sword that you're wielding might kind of pop in, pop out. So what we did, we made the decision to kind of hold all the swords in, which isn't really a natural pose for holding a sword. So as an animator, you'd be kind of like, you know, standing like this, sword would be out the side, or possibly like this. And so we tried that, and we ended up with glitches, which obviously QA found. So that was our decision for kind of getting the swords more vertical. So I can tell you that with this new engine change, we can look at the wield positions. And the other thing, Christoph and I basically chatted about this yesterday, and we just said, well, hang on, why don't we just change the Scimitars? So we think maybe we'll do a guaranteed content poll possibly, but what I'd like to do, seeing as I've got you here as a captive audience, is maybe a show of hands, anyone who'd be in favour of changing from the current Scimitar design to something more like this. So hands up, anyone? Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so expect a guaranteed content poll. So I guess in answer to the question, yeah, the Scimitars will be changing in the future.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jack. Okay. The next question is quite a big one. Again, I've been asked this a few times today, and it's for Andrew. And it's on about our future plans. So the question is, where are you going to be in the future? Are we going to be on consoles? Are we going to be sold in stores? Are we going to be maybe on the iPad or the iPhone?
I mean, it's always interesting for us to look at. We've been doing a lot of research into this area. At the moment, we're very much at the sort of technology research stage to see what is and isn't possible. A lot of you are probably aware that we released some games for the iPhone, and that was sort of testing our toes in the water and sort of seeing what the platform can do, what sort of sales we got. We are very interested in doing a version of RuneScape for other devices. We're working on a new version at the moment, which called Ortho Mode, where we do a different type of rendering, which makes the game, it looks almost the same, but it runs on much lower spec devices because of the nature of the rendering. It's not actually completely 3D anymore, but it still looks like the same game. And we're hoping that means we can get almost a full-blown graphical RuneScape experience on lower spec devices. So at the moment we're experimenting with tech, but I mean, I've got an iPad, and I'd love to play with an iPad myself, so although I can't really justify a multi-million project just because I want to play it. We do some market research as well, that sort of stuff.
Okay, thank you.